Does your mom know you're watching this show? Welcome everyone to the Friday Night BS show. We got some new faces. Tim hasn't been on the show in a while. Deana's back with us. Jake, the voice of God, is taking a break today. I always wonder what Jake does on his free time. I have to get him on. I have to do a special show on what Jake does on his free time.
Be like a 10-minute conversation.
Yeah, probably. And Derek is joining us, and I think who else is Brad might be coming on a little bit later on. Dan can't make the show tonight, but Derek is here from Paranormal of Watertown, and we're going to talk about the paranormal tonight. Yeah, the paranormal and USF. Yeah, USF football. We're going to talk about USF football. No, I'm kidding.
Wow, what a wide-ranging subject.
It's like Joe Rogan in Overdrive. That's what the type of. No, UFOs. We're going to talk about UFOs because, hey, Congress is talking about it now. So I guess we better start paying attention, right? Because Congress is talking about it. And they're putting out some pictures and stuff like that. And I thought it was kind of funny because maybe Derek knows, but there's actually some people out there that they think that both of those two things are tied in together. I don't know if you've yeah, right? Have you heard about those groups? Yeah, which is kind of a weird thing. I mean, how do you, UFOs and aliens with the paranormal? But maybe you can help us better understand that tonight.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that just instantly got brought to my mind is when we actually invested the Conjuring House. They believe there's a ton of UFO activity like around the area too. So if you actually listen to Andrea Perrin's podcast, I think it's called A World Awakening, she talks about UFOs quite a bit. So she believes fully that, UFOs and paranormal are definitely hand in hand.
Yeah, especially like a place like that where it's like super, super haunted or whatever. Actually, they also think that's sort of a gateway right there, that house, isn't it?
Yeah.
Somewhat like, So.
Yeah, like portals or, sometimes even like ley lines and stuff like that. That plays a huge role in like these haunted locations and like world sites where there's a lot of UFO sightings and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to stay away from those areas. That's why that day you guys posted that map of the most haunted cities. I was like, thank you for that map. Now I know where to stay the hell away from.
That's okay. John lives in California. He lives in hell. So
yeah.
I live in New York. I'm not too far behind him.
Yeah, he's not. At least you got rid of your mayor, your governor. Your governor got he got arrested. He got arrested. Let's not. He didn't go quietly. No, yeah, my haunted house is California, and it's Newsom. Newsom is the what would be the leader of the ghosts? He would be that person.
He's a living, breathing poltergeist.
Yeah, he is the poltergeist number one.
Yeah.
Let's say hello, Tim. Hello, Tim. How are you?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me back on the Friday Night Bullshit Show.
Yes,
figure I could sling a little bullshit tonight. I'm not doing anything. I'm ready for a 3-day weekend. So
yeah, Tim bought a cheesecake too the other day.
Yeah, that's world news. You know what I mean? I did have a Reuters piece that was done about this, but I don't know. It kind of hasn't quite made the news circuit yet. So probably be a couple weeks late.
It will. It's an inside joke if you watch the Wednesday Night Live show, Tim. We always talk about how our week is going, and Tim ended his week with, and I bought a cheesecake today.
Well, I was also under the guise too that you didn't want any long stories. I could have made the cheesecake story a lot longer than it needed to be, but I just figured I would just cut to the fucking chase.
You're gonna tell us about every individual bite and molecule of the cheese.
That I won't do, but I will tell the story leading up as to why I bought one, but not tonight.
Yeah. And Derek is with us tonight. Derek, how's your week going?
Well, it's not going too bad.
Well, yeah, you guys have been hella busy. I watch all your videos, man. You guys have just been all over the place, man. I don't know if I can take in all that stuff as fast. I guess you got to get that shit done during the summer, but I'm sure the spooky time of the year is coming up, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like I would go any time of the year. Like I'm gung ho. I would book 2 a week if my team was able to, or my wife would allow me to. But we have a couple of videos. I think I just posted a Post Town video from the Haunted Elementary School. But we have videos from Crescent Sanitarium coming up, Fort William Henry, a local library, Flower Memorial right in town we have coming up, and we actually are going to Wilson Castle in Vermont next month. So,
damn.
Yep.
I don't know.
I would probably say there's probably no shortage of haunted locations in
Oh,
any
no,
one
and that's,
particular demographic.
No, and living in New York, there's actually a really neat website called the Haunted History Trail of New York. And they have about 90 locations on there, and they give you like the back history of it. They give you all the contact information of who like runs there, who owns the location, and you just contact them, and then you can set up investigations. So it's like streamlining paranormal investigations for anybody who's interested in going to these locations.
Yeah, we're going to get into that because I have a couple good questions about that. How you guys go into your go ahead, Tim.
No, I was going to say we should have you guys down to Roswell, Georgia, because I think sometimes, and there's no slant on the paranormal stuff that gets out there, but typically around Halloween, there's all these, ghost tours and things that you can do, and we went down to Roswell a couple years ago, which is a historical site, a lot of older plantations and things of that nature, and of course it was like $20 a head. And we walked around for like an hour and a half, and none of us saw one darn thing. So we need somebody to come down and prove that this place is haunted, and they're not just there grabbing our $20 and trying to convince us we're going to see something.
Did you get a beer at the end of the tour, or a drink, or some snacks?
No, after.
Yeah, see, that's how you know it's fake.
Yeah.
That's how
there are some that are like pub crawls, and then they kind of have some backstory, ghost story stuff that goes on in the pubs. But as I understand, they're typically not very intense, and it's mostly a party. And after about the third pub, people aren't paying attention to any of the.
I saw the ghost. It was in my beer.
Well, no, it's not that. They're just not listening to the person who's
right. That's stalking,
kind of leading the way and explaining what happened or what you might see.
Yeah. Well, let's see how Deana's week is going. Deana, you told me you spilled wine. Your daughter spilled wine.
I did. Usually I spill wine on a podcast. The last 3 podcasts I spilled wine. Last night my daughter spilled wine on me in advance, and I'm pretty sure that's just putting us ahead.
It will happen. It will happen. All right, I want to get right into this, and I got a bunch of questions. And I'm sure these guys have some questions too as well. But one of the things I wanted to talk about is something you just talked about with the New York having the list of haunted locations and areas. Now, when you guys go into these investigations, do you when you go and grab that map and you look, do you read what takes place in that thing, or do you guys try to go in blind and just try to see how do you go? What is your process about picking a place, and do you try to at least go in blind and not having the cliff notes like this area, this area, this area, and I'll let you hold on, but I'll let you know why I'm bringing that up, because a lot of times what I hear from a lot of people is, sure, now it's in your head because they told you that area, so your mind is like already in that zone where, okay, I'm going to see something here. So I want to know if you guys go in blind, or you guys try to read the cliff notes and try to find those certain locations in these houses or buildings.
Yeah, so like you're saying, like you don't want to have any preconceived notions of like what activity you're supposed to hear or what you're supposed to do. So a lot of times in the history trail, they'll give you like a real quick bio, like you hear phantom footsteps, you hear disembodied voices or something like that. And we try to go in with enough information that we can use to try to like trigger a response, but not specific enough information that won't corroborate any evidence that we find. So it's kind of a fine line, because you want to know enough history of the building of why like it's supposed to be haunted or some of the claims. But like you're saying, you want to go in there with an open mind enough where, you don't put anything out there that when someone says, for instance, oh, people always get grabbed in the foot, and then, other videos, you'll say, oh my God, I just got grabbed in the foot, something like that. So we try to go in there with just enough information that we can use to try to, elicit a response, but at the same time without knowing too much. And every investigator is different, where some people like to know, where they can use certain names as trigger objects. Say there's a little girl named Mary that haunts it. You want to use that name to trigger a response, where other people will go, like I know a lot of psychic mediums that don't want to know anything about it, where they just want to, sorry about that. or they just want to go on blind.
They know you're listening. They're listening. Yeah, because I'm aware because after when you guys came on that first time, I started digging. I mean, I got into it, and I want to do it, but I don't want to do it. But then I realized too that you guys have a limited amount of time in these areas. Sometimes you get to do the overnight thing. Sometimes you only get like a couple of hours to be in these buildings. So I guess if you only have a couple of hours, it's probably a good idea to be able to know, okay, this room, that room, this room here, this area.
Yeah, I think that brings up a great point. If we only have 3 or 4 hours in a specific location, we kind of say, hey, so what are the hot spots? What rooms would you suggest that we focus on? Or if you also said if we were there for overnight, some areas, some locations we have for 12 to 14 hours. Where, for instance, the elementary school we just did, we arrived at 3 p.m. and was there till whenever we left the next morning. So in instances like that, I'm like, just don't tell me anything. We'll go figure it out ourselves,
Yeah.
No,
you guys fuck that shit overnight. So
that school was nuts. My son and I, we were walking, like my wife and daughter went to bed, I think around midnight or something. And we were walking down this one hallway. We would hear footsteps at the end of the hallway. Then we'd hear a noise behind us. And it's almost like they're playing around with us. As soon as we'd turn around one way, like we would hear like a voice or a footstep or something somewhere else. It was crazy.
Yeah. I don't know how you guys do it. I don't know if I could actually, even if I wasn't a non-believer, I don't know if I could sleep. I'd be like,
honestly, I'm exhausted after an investigation because half the time I'm carrying around a camera. I'm like, it's either really hot in these buildings or it's really cold. So we use the term what's called a para hangover, where the next day you're just exhausted. So I fall asleep pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, because you figure you only have so many hours in that building. Even if you're doing overnight, do you really want to spend 8 hours of that sleeping, or would you rather be walking around?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, guys, we're only here for X amount of time. Like, I'm all business when it comes to these locations. I just want to go. I want to collect evidence. Like, I don't want to sit around and talk about anything if it's not ghost related, don't even talk to me about it on these investigations, because we're literally paying money to go rent out these locations privately, where I'm just thinking I relate to it to people that don't fully understand. Like, say you're charting a fishing trip or something. Yeah. Like, you're going to want to be fishing the whole time. You want to have lines in the water. You want to have as much opportunity to catch evidence as you can. So you're not going to do that sitting in the break room, like just messing around, shooting the shit with people. Like,
yeah, my son got 4 A's on his report card. I don't give a shit.
Well, yeah. If you go into some of these investigations on like the short time block ones, 2-3 hours, would you say that your approach changes each time? So, you take the extreme, like 14 hours, and then you take a 2-3 hour window block. You don't really have time in that 2-3 hours to get in there and set up a bunch of video equipment and stage, backups, where it's like, okay, well, we're going to go down to this room or down this hall, but we've got this camera running in this other room. You're probably pretty much going in and you just got a game plan. You're like, okay, you guys are going to run off with the EMF readers, and you're going to go down that hall because we know that there's been reports of activity in that hall and like that. But when you do the long-term ones, are you doing the stuff like I guess most people would recognize as what they see on TV? Like, oh, we had 3 cameras pre-positioned in certain rooms, and do you do all that? Take more time to do setup?
I honestly as far as like the stationary cameras, like focusing on one area of the room, I really don't do that on any investigation, regardless of the time, just because I honestly can say I'm not going to sit there and watch 8 hours of video. Like, I don't have time to sit there and watch 8 hours of video to see if something happens. Maybe if we get like bigger and we have like a full production team or a full like equipment manager or a tech who can actually do that. Because I'm honest with ourselves and I'm honest with our capabilities. We don't have the manpower to do that. So everything we do is pretty much mobile. We'll go with mobile cameras. I wear a body cam 24/7 on these investigations. I mean, once in a while we may do what's called a static cam in front of like a doorway. If they say, a spirit appears in this doorway, but it's very limited, where we'll set it up for maybe an hour or so. So the approach does change on smaller locations, where smaller locations, that's where we say, okay, which room would you say has the most activity? Then we'll focus on those rooms. But as far as setting up, we don't run any wires. We don't run any like boom mics or anything like that. Like our team is pretty much 100% mobile, where we can just keep going through the whole building or through the whole area.
All right, cool.
Yeah, that post is a bitch. Believe me, I know. When like I'm trying to fix the shows at the end, and if I had to do video too, because audio is already a big part of me at the end of the show, but having to go through 8 hours of video, Jesus Christ! Now, do those think? Go ahead, Deana. You got something? Go, Deana.
I got nothing. Go ahead, continue. I was not interrupting you. My face.
No. I want you to. You got something you want to ask?
No, like you guys stole all the questions I had.
Oh. No, you have something. But
no, I was going to ask about the equipment. Like, what kind of equipment do you use, and how do you set it up? What ratio to? Okay, I live in Kenosha. It's a very old town. Every house in this town has history. The last house I lived in was definitely haunted.
Yeah,
like,
so
do you go into like towns like that? Do you do I know this town is old AF, I want to see everything?
Yeah, we haven't really. A lot of locations we go to is in like Western New York. A lot of it's like near Buffalo, and a lot of the history is there's a lot of trains that run from like in the early 1800s. Trains would run from New York City out west towards Buffalo. And a lot of times, like children would be dumped off in orphanages out there. There's a lot of poor farms out there. And as far as Native Americans too, when they were being pushed west out of New York, out of like Oneida and places like that. So a lot of the history on like the locations like that, that's where it seems like some of the paranormal activity is centralized. And as far as towns, I'm actually trying to get some locations in Sleepy Hollow, New York, which is known to be a pretty like active location, stuff like that. So. And
hard pass.
Are you recruiting for people? Because I would totally go on that.
What's that?
I said, are you recruiting people? Do you need extra hands? I would totally do that.
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking like on our Facebook page, we're always saying if we have extra spots open for investigations, because depending on the location, some of them are very limited where we can only bring a limited number of people, but other locations are huge where we'll throw out feelers and say, hey, if anyone wants to join us on this investigation, we're kind of opening it up to the public. So we definitely do that.
Yeah, you guys need to get out here in California, man.
Yeah, I'd love to go out west. Like we do a lot, obviously New York. We do Rhode Island, Vermont, a lot in Pennsylvania. Like we're out in Ohio. But I would love to venture more out west as the opportunity presents itself, for sure.
Well, with you being centralized on the East Coast, I mean, that's, the beginning of America. I mean, if there's going to be more history there in that area, but I think from what I was always told, when you start going further west, the deaths are more, they were more violent. Like, guys were really just kind of, the old stories, a guy shot that guy for fucking sneezing, or that guy, so they're like, it seems like, the old West, it got gritty, dirty, and it was very violent. And of course, there was a lot of gold involved. So.
Yeah. Like I was just thinking that, like the gold rush, I mean, people were there to literally try to make a fortune, and they weren't going to let anybody stand in their way. And there's a new frontier as well, too. So, like, literally, it was the Wild West, and in the mining towns, you have a lot of locations that are haunted due to the miners and, like, miners being trapped and collapsed, and just the work conditions out there as well. So that's a genesis for a haunting. You have children working in mines, you have miners working in collapsed mines, and just it's a whole recipe for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Deana brought it up, and it's perfect. I mean, even when I lived back east, I mean, every house back in South Philadelphia was, early 1800s, 1900, late and mid 1900s. So everything's been around a long, long damn time, and you got to assume, even if someone lives a normal life, you figure at least 4 or 5 different families have lived in those homes, and somebody died. I know they didn't have to.
Sure.
Yeah, someone died in there, damn it. Back then, they didn't have to disclose if someone dies in your house like you have to now. So,
I mean, I would have to imagine there's different different demographics to certain situations. So question to Derek is, are you non-discretionary to the type of investigations that you like to do? So for example, are you more interested in, say, like, the Victorian period or like versus like Civil War kind of stuff? I mean, do you kind of, is there one particular element that you like to investigate, or are you just like whatever? Well, like, yeah, that's super haunted. It was this time period kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'll never turn down any haunting. Like if they say it's haunted, I'm there. But I think the one that intrigues me the most is, like you said, a lot of like a lot of like the Civil War hauntings, or even like early turn of the century 1900s, where a lot of like institutionalized asylums where they were just like trying to figure out how to deal with mental handicaps and physical retardation and those types. Yeah, those, and that's just crazy to me because there's so much human suffering, and I think that's what causes the genesis of the hauntings, because that energy is just like trapped in those locations. So I think that early turn of the century experimentation with medicine and human psychology and all that is just what fascinates me the most personally. I mean, every investigator has their own little preference, I would say.
Bringing that up, because that's the thing that scares me, and this is my question for you, because you're talking about being, these were experimental things. There's a lot of suffering going on. Do you guys take any precautions on what possibly could happen if things go wrong, and how do you guys deal with those situations? So carrying someone home.
I think the biggest precaution we take is our approach and how we approach the investigations to begin with. I mean, we don't go in like you see on Hollywood or on these TV shows where they go in and just start screaming, hooting, and hollering. I think going in with a mindset that these were human. You talk to them as they're living. You talk to them as if they're still a living entity, and I think they will respect you for that. I think if you go in trying to go all Hollywood, like, and claiming everything's a demon and making it a mockery, I think that's where negative attachments will, manifest. I think a lot of it is your mindset and, you being conscious of the spirit world and being respectful of it. I don't believe, I think a few times we've been followed home. I've heard children whispers like after investigations.
No.
And what's nuts with that too is after we came back from Iron Island Museum, which is out near Buffalo. It used to be a funeral home. There's the biggest reports like children's spirits there. And me, Brad, and Christy were in a group text. And I said, man, I was just about to fall asleep. And I heard a child voice whisper my name, Derek. And then Brad's like, oh my God, that's crazy. And then 3 hours later, Christy jumps in the group chat. She goes, oh my God, I heard my name whispered too. I'm like, well, where the hell? She's like, I was just sleeping. I just woke up to this. So we simultaneously experienced the same like child whisper, which was pretty nuts. So
thank you for all the fucking goosebumps I have on my body right now.
So, but as far as like, we don't like, I think there's 2 times when we actually saged ourselves after
the location. That's what I wanted to ask you. Is there a blessing you do at the end, or is there? I'm sure there's one that you guys do before you go in, and I'm assuming there's one that you guys do when you leave.
We don't really do a blessing per se. I would say the most of members of our group are probably agnostic or atheist, to be honest with you, where I'm kind of more on the...
I meant like a ritual, some sort of get the fuck away from me kind of thing.
Pretty much we say you are not allowed to follow us home. Like we vocalize it. We say we're here to try to communicate with you. We're here to try to help you. The biggest thing that we try to convey is that we're here to tell their story. We're here to be a medium to help them give out a message. And when we do to that approach, I think that instantly kind of lets their guard down and say, hey, these guys aren't here to try to throw us out of our building. I mean, that's ultimately why I think they're probably haunting it, is because they're protective of their space and they want to make sure that they're not being infringed upon. So I think just being upfront with them, just, clearly stating our intentions and making it known that they are not welcome to follow us and we're not there to hurt them is the 2 biggest, I think, preventative measures that we take when we go in.
Yeah, because that would be freaky. I mean, just one thing, I can watch haunted shit on TV, but when it comes to kids, I'm out. I can't watch it. And every movie that I've ever watched, as soon as the kid's involved, I'm out. I'm done. I stop it. I don't want to watch it from any longer because and if you guys do your investigations and then you get home and you hear a whisper, fuck that.
I think a lot of it too is there's a Hollywood notion, or at least in like paranormal TV shows that a demon will masquerade themselves as a child, and that's a common theme in some of these movies. That if it's a child spirit, it's a demon trying to trick you. I don't know if that's 100% true. I mean, it very well could be, but I think as far as like demons or real negative entities, hauntings are very, very, very rare. They're not as prevalent as some of these shows or YouTubers will have you believe. I mean, you go on paranormal video YouTubers and you would think that every single place has a demon in it, where that's just for clicks and views. Where
right. That's what I mean, from what I understand and from what I read about demons, if there's a demon there, you're gonna fucking know.
You're not gonna sit there and continue making YouTube videos for years, and they're gonna fuck up your life. To be honest with you.
Yeah. I have something I wanted to do with you here, so I'm going to go through some shows. Okay. And I want. Let me see, make sure I have the right one here. But I kind of want to go through shows, and I want to kind of get your opinion. Some from 1 to 5, 1 being bullshit show, and 5 being like legit.
Okay.
So I kind of want to hear how you go through some of these. Let me make sure I have the right page. I had it all bookmarked. I had it all bookmarked, but I think Google said, "What is fucking John doing this week on his show?"
Well, this is fun because people always ask me, they're like, "Well, what's it really like, compared to TV and stuff?" So this is interesting because there's definitely a spectrum of shows that are, fairly true to paranormal, investigating, and then they're just pure bullshit.
Yeah, I'm going to hit you with the big one. All right, 1 to 5, Ghost Adventures.
So 1's being the fakest,
1 being complete bullshit, and so 5 being legit.
I'd say Ghost Adventures, the first maybe 8 seasons, probably like a 3, maybe. Now a 1, like maybe even below 1.
It's gotten so bad.
Every episode. Honestly, a lot of people don't know this, but Nick Groff, he's not the head man. Like Zach Bagans is obviously the head of the show or the star of the show, but it was Nick Groff's baby. It was his show, his idea. They brought Zach and Aaron on, and once Nick left, it just tanked. Like I'd say it started off fairly good intentions, but it's a 1 for sure.
Yeah, and he was out buying a lot of shit. Well, it's true that he bought that house, right? And he teared it down or moved it. That one.
The demon house.
Yeah.
Because I actually watched that documentary, and like supposedly he got blind from the demon. That's why he wears those really thick glasses now. Like I said, like you never know because they do honestly go into these locations.
Yeah,
and they could very well attract demons, but out of all the locations Ghost Adventures have done, our team has probably done a dozen of them easily. And there's nothing like that in these locations.
I think I think they go in with the right intention, but then I think Hollywood has to put their spin on it. And then, they have executives that say, hey, we need to have a little bit more of this. We need more of that.
Exactly, and that's one reason why they've been on the Travel Channel and Discovery Plus for I think 23 seasons. Is a guy that actually knows them. Kind of, he's like, well, they play ball with Hollywood. That's point blank how they get extended season after season.
That's it. So. Do you want that check to keep rolling in?
Yep.
Ghost Asylum.
Actually, I just watched that show just before I came on the podcast.
Yeah.
I would say probably a 3, maybe. Maybe even see what gets me with that show is I don't think they fake hearing stuff. I don't think they fake seeing stuff, but they try to capture a goddamn ghost in a box, and that's not going to happen. Yeah. That's. I would say they're almost a 4 or a 5, but just trying to capture that ghost in the box drops it down to a 2.5 or a 3.
They went straight Ghostbusters. That's what they did.
But the one I just watched, they try to capture it in a Utica cage, which is pretty much a baby crib with a top on it. And it's all open. You're not going to capture a spirit in a thing like that. Like, I just don't understand.
Yeah.
Why they think they can do that? Like, it's laughable.
That's why.
The haunted collector, actually. Have you heard of that?
The
show?
haunted collector.
Yeah, the haunted.
You said the haunted collector.
Haunted.
Yep. And that's with a guy named.
It's
Gaffis, right?
Yeah, it's three guys. It looks like it's a very older gentleman and 2 guys in there. Look like in their mid-30s. It's always 3 guys. Where's the ghost women hunters? Well, that would be ghost whisperers.
Let's do it.
A full investigation team with women.
So I think actually our team has more women on it than men, I believe, because it's me, Brad, Dan, and then there's Jess, Christy, Amanda, and Alyssa. So we actually are outnumbered. So, I actually haven't watched that show too much, but from the reputation that the main older man has, he's pretty legit in the paranormal community. Yeah. So I would say probably like a 4 from the limited knowledge that I know.
See, these are shows I'm going to end up watching. Ghostland, Tennessee.
I've never seen that show.
No, never seen that show.
Nope.
All right, I'm going to go into an actual TV series right now, and Supernatural.
I've actually never watched that show either.
What?
I don't get out much. If I have free time, I'm out in the haunted asylum.
You need to start. It's on Netflix. Watch it, and then let me know.
I hear good things about it.
Yeah, from what I heard, it's pretty accurate, but they do get a little goopy, from time to time. But they try to keep pretty accurate. Go ahead.
I feel like they have great reviews from the Twilight following demographic. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, well, it's the 2 hot guys. You got a lot of, you're going to draw in a lot of young females when you got 2 hot guys hunting ghosts all day long. The Secret Circle.
I haven't heard of that either.
I haven't heard of that one either. All right, I'm going to hit you with actually, I don't know. Is this an old show, The Vampire Diaries?
I've heard of it.
And I want to get your take on vampires too, of course.
Well, they're not really. I mean, I think that's different, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not really paranormal in the sense. I mean, they're not like apparitions or ghosts. They're actual people whose blood has been tainted. So I think that might be a little bit more.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any actual true vampires. I think there are people that like to follow that kind of
story of the glittery monsters.
I found my link now. Okay, so I can do the illegitimate. I was just throwing some out that were on the top of my head. Haunted Lives, True Ghost Stories. That's an older show from 91 to 95. I don't know if you're pretty young.
Yeah, I was like 10, so I don't know.
Ooh.
Haunted History. Have you seen that show? 2013, and it looks like it's still going because it doesn't have an end date on it. How about Most Haunted? That was from 2002.
Yeah, I've seen that. So a lot of those shows are like reenactments of true stories. Yeah. And we've done a few locations that have been featured on those shows. The Bergen House is one of them. And from what they portrayed on the show versus what I've actually spoken to the owners with, there is a little bit of dramatization to it, but the basis of the haunting is true. So I'll say those shows are probably like a 3.5 to a 4.
Okay. Paranormal Witnesses, 2011. Same thing. It's one of those documentaries. Yeah.
Yeah, where maybe they have like the witness sit in a circle and stuff, and maybe the producer is like, well, maybe really sell it a little bit more. Where I think, me watching it, I believe it's authentic just based on their reactions a lot of times. So
this one must be done by Fox. When Ghosts Attack. That's got to be a Fox.
When animals attack.
Yeah, it's when animals attack. They're all Fox. It's not a Fox documentary. Hey, Fox just drew a huge audience when they produced that show, though. Everybody was talking about it at work. Dude, did you watch When Animals Attack? I'm like, dude, seriously? When Ghosts Attack is back from 2013. It is a documentary. True stories of families who have faced deadly ghosts in their home.
I'm not. Yeah, because I watched a show similar to that. I think it was called Ghost Attack. I'm not sure if it's the same exact show, but the same kind of idea, where it's more about like private residences and then their home being, attacked, or they're being attacked within their home. I think those are pretty legit. I mean, I think those are probably instances where the entity, they lived in that residence and they pretty much want to protect their home. And a lot of times, what I'm told by psychics and mediums is a lot of times if someone is scratched or they're pushed, that's the only way that the spirit can get their attention. So it may seem a lot more malevolent than what it is, but that's the only way that the spirit can say, hey, you're in my space, get out. So I would say those shows are pretty legit. Again, maybe a 4.
Controller boundaries out there.
Yeah. That one that I just watched the other day, I posted on Facebook. The Haunting of what was that one? I think you commented, you laughed at it when I posted it. Derek, anytime I put spooky stuff, Derek just hits laugh. He just hits the laugh emoji, like, John, come on. Let me see if I can find it. It was on Netflix. And actually was a pretty good series. It was like a three-week series or three. Yeah.
The Haunting of Hill House.
Of Hill House. That's fake, right? That's not based on anything, is it? I hope to God it's not.
I mean, it's based on a real book. I don't know if the book was based on true events. I actually think it was.
Oh, fuck that. That had me going. I like when they do stuff like that where they really make you think, because they keep constantly flashing back and forth, and I like that because it makes you stay within the show and pay attention.
Now, did you finish that series?
Yes, I did.
Okay, can I talk about it without giving out spoilers?
Yeah, go ahead. If they haven't watched it, too bad for them.
Okay. So the broke neck lady.
Yeah, the broke neck lady. Yeah.
There's actually a broke neck real life lady from the Conjuring house. The children drew it in the basement on a chest that they saw. They would claim that they saw a lady with a crooked neck, and there's actually a drawing in the basement of the Conjuring house of the broke neck lady.
Yeah. That was freaky. That whole show was freaky, and it got me going because it wasn't like what is that, where like boom, they got you, know what I mean? It wasn't that type of kind of spooky, like where you're watching the screen and all of a sudden something would pop up on the screen. It was just the way they did it was really good. It was really good.
It wasn't like full of jump scares, but it was more like a slow burn, whereas it really built attention to it. So I really enjoyed that series.
All right, I feel like there are a couple big ones got missed. Maybe ones
ahead.
that are more common to people who cycle the TV looking for this stuff. What about? I think these are almost one and the same cast, same people. There was Ghost Hunters, and I think it's now called Ghost Nation.
Yep. So Ghost Hunters was the original series that premiered, and then after Ghost Hunters, the two leaders, Jason and Graham, they kind of split, where one formed Ghost Nation and the other one continued Ghost Hunters, but then Ghost Nations stopped, and now they're Ghost Hunters Revisited or something. And then Amy and Adam from Ghost Hunters split off into Kindred Spirits. So I would say, as far as like their evidence collected, I think they try to debunk more than most shows. So I would say they're probably more along the 4 to 5 range, where I don't see them running around screaming. I don't ever see them claiming to be possessed. I think they're more along the lines of being very more authentic. And actually,
I think I kind of gathered that too, because there's a stark difference when you watch Ghost Adventures versus Ghost Hunters. Their investigations and their results are extremely different. Whereas like Zach and those guys, they have all this crazy stuff that are just like, suck people in. They're like, oh, wow, that's what it's really like. But then you see ghost hunters, and it's like, it's mostly like, EVPs or some shadows or some noises or things falling or dropping and stuff like that, which to me, if I were a paranormal investigator, I would have probably envisioned those are the kinds of experiences I would have versus, again, being possessed by demons and blinded and being controlled. The other one that I had a question about, and this one seemed genuine to a larger extent, was Paranormal State.
Yeah,
that's the college kids. Yeah.
Yep, Paranormal State, and then Katrina Weidman from Paranormal State actually split off and did Paranormal Lockdown with Nick Groff, who once he left Ghost Adventures, he did Paranormal Lockdown with Katrina, and now Nick Groff split off again and he's doing a new series called Deathwalker, and Katrina went with Jack Osborne to do Portals to Hell. Okay. And I think all those shows are more legit, where I can sit down and watch them and be like, okay, that's more like what we experience when we actually do these investigations. Like you said, we may see a shadow out of the corner of our eye. My favorite piece of evidence is EVPs and running the digital recorder. Like you said, that's more along the lines of what you're genuinely going to get in these locations.
Yeah. I mean, they're not good. That's what I think a lot of people think. They always think that they're just going to all of a sudden be standing right next to you, and they're going to, I forget the word they use for when a ghost shows itself. They got a specific word for it. I forget. Manifest itself. Yeah. And that's not going to happen. I mean, that's not, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're not going to just all of a sudden, hey, how you doing? My name is Bob. I killed 15 people in this house, and you're standing in the spot where I killed one. No,
right.
that's not
well, then that spurs another question for me then.
Yeah.
All right, because obviously, I mean, some of this stuff can be done with, pretty basic electronics in some regards. He's okay, folks. He's still sitting in his chair.
He's been possessed by a demon.
Exactly, yeah. No, my volume just all of a sudden went very quiet, so I was just trying to fix it real quick.
Somebody followed you home, Derek. That's what happened. There you go. So some things can be used in paranormal investigations that I would imagine are reasonably, easy to obtain, like something to record EVPs on and things of that nature. They're just handheld recorders and things like that, maybe a little bit more sensitive. But then you see shows like Ghost Adventures where Zach and these guys have like what appears to be these like, it's almost like the Bat Cave, somebody invented this crazy ass shit that they could see. Now, obviously, there are things like, the ones that read heat and temperature change and stuff like that to kind of pick up on maybe energy spots and things like that. But then, like, what do you make of the devices that they have that, and I don't know what they call them, but like where they actually, it seems to project or detect some kind of a physical body, and it makes like a stick figure that kind of tends to sometimes
that new
float
thing
and move and think so I mean, would you say that that's the Hollywood side of it, like that's all for the TV and no other paranormal investigator really kind of uses that kind of stuff, and that's just sensationalized?
Yeah, so that device or that equipment is called the SLS camera, which is short for the structured light system, or structured light. It's structured light system, I believe it's what SLS stands for. And I think it's a tool that can be used, but you gotta be very careful with it, because if you point it towards a coat rack, it's gonna map out the coat rack as a humanoid figure. If you point it towards the back of a chair, it's gonna do the same thing, where I think it gives a lot of false positives. So I think unless it's mapping something like a completely dark hallway, or if it's mapping, something where there's nothing behind it, and you say, hey, can you raise your hand, and the figure raises its hand, I think it's, you got to be very, very careful with a piece of equipment like that, where you can use it as a tool, but I wouldn't trust it 100%.
Yeah, because that's been popping up. I saw one the other day, Tim, when you said the stick figure. I go, wait a minute, I just saw one on TikTok where they're having a pillow fight with each other. The two ghosts in this lady's house having a pillow fight, and the actual pillows are actually moving in the house, like they're throwing them at each other, but they have like two stick figures. You can see the stick figures, and somehow these pillows are flying across the room like these two ghosts are having a pillow fight. And I'm thinking, must be a college dorm, a girls' college dorm. They're having a pillow fight. I don't think ghosts are having pillow fights.
Too many nudes in that day.
So break down for us the equipment that you usually use when you go into an investigation. Like what's in your arsenal when you go?
So the basic, like I said before, the basic equipment that I personally like to use is a digital recorder. I think that's the easiest tool you can use, because the premise behind that is that the spirits speak on a frequency that we can't hear by our naked ear. So that's a tool that I personally like to use. We use also what's called a spirit box, an SB7 spirit box, where it cycles through radio stations at like 100 channels per second, where the idea is that the spirits can communicate through that white noise in between. We use night vision cameras, where I think that's the easiest way to try to capture like a shadow figure. We use full spectrum cameras that shoot at a different range of light than what our naked eyes can see. So we have REM pods that detect a change in electromagnetic field. We have K2 meters that also do the same thing, which is more of a handheld device. I personally like to go kind of low tech, where I think the higher tech you use, the more potential there is to be like a false positive or equipment malfunction, where I just think if you're sitting in a room by yourself and you have a recorder and a voice comes through and you know there's no one around you, that's the easiest way to try to prove that there's something there.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna add a little fun to the show here. I actually did a poll because I was kind of curious, and I did this poll on the Gen X page. So these are people, Gen Xers. They're Gen Xers, and I asked them, and this is pretty funny. I asked them if they would actually. All right, let me hold on here. And the question I asked them is, would you go on a first date on a paranormal investigation at a haunted house? And I'm going to be honest with you. I was shocked at the results. I was really, really shocked at the results, because I thought I was going to get a lot of, oh, hell no. But 70% said yes, they would go. 70% of them said they would go on a blind date with a complete stranger to a paranormal. 21% said, oh, hell no. And 7% said maybe, depends on the background of the home, which I thought would be a little bit higher as well. I mean, I think for myself, that's like the first question I'm asking. Where are we going? How fucking haunted is it? And what's the backstory? Those are the three things I'm going to ask before. Deana, I'm going to ask you, Deana.
Yay, I'm so excited. I was actually one of the yeses.
You were one of the yeses.
That intrigues the hell out of me.
Yeah.
If we're throwing dating into this, if you're going to be a pussy, you don't want to go on the ship with me. Just vote out now. Just saying.
Just calling you out, baby.
Calling you out, bitches. Let's do this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good litmus test too. So if, say, you take a date to a haunted house and then some shit starts to happen, if he throws you out of the way and just runs and leaves you there, you've got a pretty good indicator of what type of
That's pretty true.
I mean, besides the whole fact that I am very interested in all that whole thing. John posted a thing on Facebook about like the most haunted towns, and one of them was Janesville, Wisconsin, which is 45 minutes, an hour from me. And I live in a pretty old town. Like the last house I lived in, a dude murdered himself in the basement in the 70s. Hung himself from the. I'm a short person, and the rafters are not that high, so I question this myself. But I've been in that basement, and weird shit happened.
Yeah. I was shocked. Unless Gen X just got some big balls and they don't give a shit, and they're like, yeah, whatever.
Bring it.
I mean, I don't know. I think unless you're just hypersensitive, like you won't even go to like one of the goofy haunted houses around Halloween time, when you know it's just actors and nothing bad's going to happen, and you just not ready for the jump scares. I think those people can probably check themselves out of ever wanting to do stuff like that, period. But I do think that there is a vast majority of people who just have a natural curiosity for this stuff, and and would be interested in testing their own waters, going in and seeing, what that experience might be like. And so, this is where, like, I've never actually gone to a targeted location, closed the door behind me, all the lights are off, we just have night vision cameras and recorders, and we're trying to, provoke something to come through. I've put myself in situations where, these people supposedly in this much younger days, quote unquote, claim themselves to be some kind of a medium or something like that. Like they have this ability to be able to kind of see them, communicate with them, pull them through. I was explaining at the beginning of the show that I've never really had any known paranormal experiences that I can validate and say, this really happened. But there was this one girl, and I don't even know how we met her. She claimed herself to be, I think she was a friend of another friend, and we were in an apartment, and we decided, she was like, yeah, let's make a Ouija board. And so we made this hand-drawn Ouija board, and then we took the top of a of a hairspray can, probably Aquanet, and cut out the centerpiece. You know how, because like when you turn a cap upside down, that has like that little, that goes over the nozzle. Cut that out, and that was the, like what you would use as the magnifying glass.
Conduit.
So it would go to the letters. And so she basically had us all put our one finger on the cup thing, the lid thing, and she said, and don't touch it hard, like don't put any pressure on, just rest your finger on it. And she started asking some questions, and of course, there was premonitional stuff like, oh, well, just so you know, spirits tend to like to they like to misspell things intentionally, or they might intentionally lie to you. It depends on the intent of the spirit and all this other stuff. So, okay. So we all put our finger on this lid of the spray can, and, she starts asking questions and things, and this thing started to move. Now, was she pushing and pulling it? I don't know. To me, it felt like, my eyes were open, and I was like watching it move, as it was moving around, and it didn't feel like there was much stress or much pressure on it, but that could have been, forced as well. You know what I mean? So I can't really say that was a legitimate moment in time. But I do think that people just have a natural curiosity for it. A large majority would, and I'm not surprised by the 70% result. I think people would want to go get freaked out a little bit.
Yeah, I would go. Even like, it's funny with Derek, but I don't think I would push my date down on the ground. Like, fucking, dude, you're out. Slowest person dies. That's how it always works, man.
But that's a great question, though. I mean, that brings up a great question. So, Derek, describe for us probably one of your most intense investigative moments, and has anybody in your party or your investigation group ever hightailed it out of there because they just got something freaked them out that bad that they had to bail, like not Nick, but the bald-headed guy.
Aaron.
Aaron. Yeah, Aaron sometimes runs out like he's losing his shit. So.
Yeah, my wife actually had that moment. We were at Hillview Manor in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, and it was pretty much like a old mental asylum / like state home, like nursing home, hospital type deal. Yeah. And actually, Dan, Brad, and I were up on the 3rd floor, which was supposed to be like the combative male ward, where they put like the trouble male patients. And we were up there kind of like edging them on a little bit, be like, hey, talk to us, you scare women up here, you can't scare men, blah blah blah. We got a little bit of activity.
I saw that episode. Yeah.
And then so the girls went up there and we're running a spirit box, and it was one of our friends, Sydney, my wife Amanda, Alyssa, Jess, and I think Stan was the only guy up there. So there's 4 or 5 girls up there and Stan. And so they're asking a question, and they said, hey, do you want us to stay or do you want us to go? And then instantly a deep male voice comes through and says, you're staying, like almost like a demonic type voice.
Yeah, it was
My
freaky.
wife,
You guys freaked me out.
Did you listen to that clip, John?
Yes. I watched that clip. I was like, get the fuck out of that house, you guys.
Yeah, so my wife ran 3 flights. I mean, this is 100,000 square foot asylum.
Yeah.
And she ran in the dark 3 flights of stairs, found home base. I have no idea how, but that's how freaked out she was. She's like, everyone, see ya. Like I'm gone.
Yeah, it was freaky. And that's the same episode on your channel where he wanted the girls to leave. Is that the same location?
Yep.
Yeah, that was freaky. No. I stopped watching that, and I decided to watch that like at 1 a.m. or something like that. I was like, you fucking assholes.
Right. Nope. Right the fuck out of there.
Yeah. I saw that episode. Well, there was an incident that I don't know, Derek talked about on like our first shows about someone getting scratched as well.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, see, I don't like that.
Yeah, that's another question you stole from me. Was the bodily harm question?
Yeah, that's scratching shit, man. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Dan or Jeff and Alyssa have ever been scratched, but I know I personally haven't. I've had stuff like whispered to me, like disembodied voices, but as far as like physical harm, I personally never have. I'm not sure if Brad had a board thrown at him. I think maybe that's one thing that Brad was talking about at Burnbrae Mansion. He was talking about a woman is said to have liked wine or something, and he was messing around. She goes, "Oh no, she's more of a margarita type girl." And then when he was walking towards like a grand piano, a piece of plywood that was laying on top of it literally got thrown off the piano and at him. And Brad turned and hightailed it out of there. He bowled over a chair and got scratched by the chair and stuff like that. So that was probably Brad's most intense moment. We still laugh about it.
No, still laughing. You guys talk about it before each investigation. Hey, remember that time Brad took bailed out of that?
Well, I mean, that brings up more questions. Like, do you believe that that's more of a spirit was trying to just get your attention in a very prompt exclamation point way, or was that something malicious?
No, I don't think we really come across anything too malicious as far as the places that we've gone. But I think certain entities they can be more negative than nice. I mean, if you're an asshole when you're alive and you're in a spirit form now, I think you're going to be more of an asshole, but I don't think you're necessarily going to be a demon or demonic. But yeah, I think that was just kind of getting Brad's attention. Like, hey, I can hear what the hell you're saying and I don't really appreciate it. So let me, knock you down a peg, something along.
That's awesome and terrifying at the same time.
That's the thing. I mean, I don't know if you guys, with the board flying across the room, that's something, I mean, that's an object actually moving, but that's what I was going to ask you if you run into things that are moved around. I've seen where you guys have used the teddy bear with the light. That is very cool. But have you seen things physically move across a table? And
we were at, Greystone Manor, and one of the reports was that the pool balls in the basement would move around, and then they said that there was a negative entity in the basement, or at least a strong male presence that didn't want people in the basement. And we actually got the name Dan in the basement, and at first we thought it was maybe our co-founder Dan, but come to find out a man named Daniel Root actually died in that house too. So we set up pool balls along the pool table, and I had a night vision camera on, and we were asking, hey, there's, people say that you guys play pool down here when no one's down here. Can you move one of these pool balls? And we actually captured on camera one of the pool balls getting pushed into one of the side pockets.
I'm out.
Yeah. I would be like, I need to focus on this for like 4 more hours.
But I mean, John, and to John's point, I mean, I think that just trips him out that something like that could actually happen. But I mean, call me crazy, but I think Derek would probably tell you that like things like that are non-harmful. I mean,
they're not harmful.
It's just energy moving something.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it
it's just
doesn't
my
happen that
Catholic.
fun.
It's just my Catholic side of me is what freaks me out. It's the priest in the back of my head going,
Yeah.
"Get the fuck out of that house."
And we tried to debunk it too. Like we reset up the balls. We like went over by the pool table. We shook the pool table. We walked around it to see if maybe like the vibrational movement from our footsteps, stuff like that. We tried to debunk it, and it takes a lot of force to move a pool ball on a level table.
Yeah.
So it was. We showed the owner, and she thought it was pretty awesome. So, and she's a psychic medium as well. That pretty much confirms what evidence we find. She's like, oh yeah, there's a guy that by the name of that name, or by the name that you guys got on your EVP that died here. So they have historical evidence of that.
Is there because everything, let's be honest, everything that is really, really spooky or could be as very extremely spooky is in Europe. I mean, let's be honest, the history is a lot older than ours. Is there ancient caveman ghost where they hit the female investigators in the head and drag them by the hair into the cave? No, but is there a location in Europe that you guys, if you had the opportunity to go to, that would be your number one?
Yeah, there's a few of them. I always wanted to do Bron Castle, which is supposedly Vlad the Impaler's castle, which is Dracula. I'm not even sure if it's haunted, but you can rent it out for an investigation. I've looked into it. They actually have an excursion for, I think it's like $9,000 a person, but it's 9 nights. You visit like 7 castles, like 4 monasteries, and it's like an all-exclusive European paranormal tour. So that's something that's on my bucket list.
Somebody's capitalizing.
Tim, are you taking a future date on that excursion?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I can pony up $9,000, but I mean, I certainly, I would.
Dino go in halves, Tim. Dino said you go in halves.
Well, it's probably $9,000 a person.
Yeah, that's expensive.
Right. So, with that said, though, I mean, I think with my experience and knowing and seeing, so for example, Spain, you go over there and it's, you're looking at basically almost medieval times, practically. I can only imagine what kind of experiences you might be able to obtain over there. And you're talking from town to town to town. It's not like these things only exist in major cities. I mean, you go to even some of the outlying little villas and stuff, and you go to their little small little town, and there's buildings that are older than the hills, and there's castles and things of that nature. I think I think it's 6 in one hand, half a dozen of the other. I mean, there's probably plenty of stuff in America that is equally as haunted as you might find 16th, 17th century over in Europe or something like that, where you're talking, kings and queens and, dictators and, crazy stuff like that. I mean, I think one that would interest me the most, I think, would be that medieval time period, when life was just completely...
The Dark Ages, man.
Well, Dark Ages, but I mean, a lot more crazy. You know what I mean? There was just, law and rule was completely out the window, and there was kingdoms, and people, like you said, people were just sort of like, murdered for absolutely nothing at all. I mean, it was worse than the Wild West. But yeah, I mean, I'd take a stab at it. I'd go, just if someone was game enough to do it. Of course, I don't know that I would go extreme and be like, okay, yeah, lock us in this building overnight for like 9 hours in the pitch dark, but I mean, I would do a 2 or 3, in the beginning, just to kind of get a feel and the vibe for the situation. I wouldn't call myself necessarily a skeptic. I'm not a skeptic in that sense. I believe that there are spirits trapped in this kind of space, for multiple reasons. It could have been sudden death, and they don't really know that they're dead. They're, in their, it's unfinished business for them. I do think that there's residual energies that exist in certain places, one video that always fascinated me. I don't know, maybe Derek's seen it, but there was and it gets shown on a lot of the the variety type ghost shows, where it's like, oh, they have a bunch of quote unquote experts or something kind of watch this video and then they offer their commentary on it. But it's a couple that was it may have been Gettysburg. It may have been Gettysburg. But they basically just kind of parked it in their car and they just kind of had their camera aimed off at this battlefield. It was, a battlefield. And then, as the night wore on, eventually you started seeing like these, what I can presume are like Union soldiers or something like that, kind of passing through the woods. And you would see like, the apparition as it kind of passed through the woods. And to me, that felt like a genuine video. It didn't feel like this was people who tried to doctor a video, I mean, like that kind of stuff would interest me. Like that's the kind of stuff that I would want to experience,
Yeah.
I think I'd be ultimately tripped out if I heard an apparitional voice in my ear or something like that. I think as a kid, you kind of sleep with the lights on over that kind of stuff.
Tim would get mad at him for pronouncing his last name incorrectly.
Well, that's because you would be the ghost that would do that.
I'm gonna hunt you, Swift.
Yeah. So I had another question for Derek then, because obviously, is paranormal investigation something that's always intrigued you from being a little kid? Like, it was just always like a draw for you, or is it that would you say anybody that's in your particular group had experiences as kids or when you were younger, and then that translated and it was like, okay, I had 5 or 6 experiences as a kid, now I want to go dig deeper?
Yeah, so for me personally, I was just always intrigued with it. I mean, I grew up watching Ghostbusters, the cartoon, and then grew up watching Unsolved Mysteries. So I think those 2 shows really got my interest peaked in the paranormal. And just watching those shows, like whenever the ghost segments would come on Unsolved Mysteries, I'm like, oh man, that's so awesome. Like I always loved it. And then as far as like other members of our group, I know Dan and Amanda, they grew up in a haunted house. So that's kind of how they got involved in it. Christy lived in a haunted house for like 7 years. That's how me and Dan first investigated her house once she moved out. And then it kind of just snowballed from there, where we were all just kind of hooked on it. Like, and that's kind of like back in late 2018 is when we really started, as far as like as a group, started like investigating together and like say, hey guys, let's, there's a whole bunch of stuff in New York. Let's just go and, check it out. But I think everyone in our group individually has experienced something as a kid, as far as like either whether it be experiencing a spirit themselves, or like with me, it was just watching it on TV and just being like, oh man, that's awesome. Like I definitely believe there's something out there.
Do you ever bring outside references in, like people who claim to be mediums and can kind of channel the energy or the spirit or their voice or their presence and stuff like that, and help and allow that to be some kind of a tool that you're using during an investigation?
Yeah, that's something that we definitely are open to. We have had a few people that are like sensitives, where they aren't necessarily psychic, but they feel more, I guess you call them like empaths, or you would call them sensitives, where they can feel the energy change and they can sense. I think my cousin Christy is, she has gifts and abilities like that. She just has to fine tune them. And I think the more she works on it, the more she's building that ability. Because there's a belief that everybody is born with the ability to do it. Just some are automatically there, and others fine tune it, and others just shut their brains off to it, where they're never going to experience it. So, but as far as like bringing in someone who's already like a renowned psychic or renowned medium, we haven't quite done that yet, because a lot of locations we've been to, a few of them, their owners are psychic mediums, and they'll kind of go around with us and kind of, investigate with us kind of, and tell us as much or as little as we'd want to know.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Because I was always wondering if that, like, if their cues allowed you to maybe stay in one area a little bit longer because they're starting to sense something in that room, or
that's
area.
Pretty much Jess in our group and Christian in our group. Those are the 2 like beacons in our group where if they start to get like, oh my God, I don't like the feeling in this room, we're like, okay, let's get in that room because there's something that's about to pop off there. So yeah,
I'm pointing
those
out
two are the
Derek's like,
ones.
let's get in that room.
Yeah, those two, they definitely have some abilities because it never fails. And it seems like whoever they go around with, there's more activity around those particular people.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird because I I've had a couple experiences, and I still there are times like where I am places, and I know everyone has this feeling, but I always feel like there's someone's next to me or someone's by me all the time. I get this weird feeling, and a lot of times it's not. I don't get like the hairs on my back going up or in the back of my. I get like sweaty. Like I can feel like I'm starting to get a little heated, a little hot and sweaty. And I always feel like, okay, there's someone's like right here or right behind me or in this room. And I hate that feeling. I hate it. And even in my bedroom, I know that situation that happened to me a couple years back. I mean, I've not yet had that experience ever again in that room, but now I'm at that point where every little fucking noise makes me open my eyes. And it's weird because like I said to you, I don't feel like it was trying to hurt me that night. I think it was warning me that, hey, that bottle broke and there's 5 gallons of wine on the floor. And when you get it, because I just bump out my bed literally sits 3 feet off the ground. And then with the stupid mattress that I have that's like 1.5 feet big. I mean, I just jump out. I have to literally jump out of my bed. And I'm 6'3", so when I jump out, and I think it was just letting me know, and to hey, be careful, and wake up and smell this rotten wine that you should be smelling right now, because as soon as that second push, that pushed me, I mean that push was hard, and it pushed me to almost the other side of the bed, and that's when I kind of opened my eyes and I could smell the sulfur from the old wine. That bottle of wine was 60 plus years old. And it's a big 3-foot bottle of wine that has about 5 gallons of wine in it. And the way it broke was weird. I mean, I told you guys, I mean, just the bottom of the glass broke. Yep. So the bottle's still intact. I can lift the bottle off and it's just the bottom part of the bottle is broke off, just cracked perfectly all the way around it. And I don't know how that happened. But for it to push me that hard, for me to wake up and then see, I always thought, after I started talking to you guys, that I realized, okay, maybe that's what it was actually doing, was just like warning me that, hey, this bottle's broken. Don't jump out of bed or get up and deal with it now. It was very weird. Sorry, I got goosebumps.
Do you feel like there was any particular connection between
There was none. There was a black shadow. No eyes, no nothing, just a black shadow, and I can physically still see its arms and its hands pushing me, because I was like in that state where I was still half asleep but not really asleep, and I kind of rolled over, because first it was the little nudge, and then I kind of turned over and I looked over and I could see the black shadow on the side of my bed, and I just closed my eyes like I thought I was seeing something, and then next thing I know, it was just boom, hard, and I just basically went from one end of the bed to almost to the other end of the bed, and that's when I kind of opened my eyes and I got hit with all that smell. It's sulfur. It's from the old bottle of wine. It's just nasty sulfur smell, and I was just like, the hell's that smell? And that's when I rolled over and turned the light on, and that's how I realized I was on the other side, because I always sleep on the left side of the bed, and all of a sudden I'm all the way on the right side of the bed. So I'm like, okay, something's not right, and I rolled over and turned the light on, and there's just my whole floor is white tile in my bedroom, and every square inch of my bedroom was filled with wine. It was just all wine, the whole floor. It was very, very creepy. It was very creepy. And the globe thing still, I got rid of the globe. I'm going to let you know that globe is out of my house. I don't know if it was tied into that globe or what was going on with that globe, but that globe is gone. It does not exist in my house. And then after I told my son the story, he got rid of it. He's like, fuck, I don't want that globe in my house.
What's the story about the globe?
There's my mom won this globe on The Price is Right, and it's sitting in the corner of the house. And the part of the house is dedicated to everyone that has ever passed away in her family. So it's her mom, her dad, my mom's dad, my mom's. It's all dead people on this wall, and this globe is right there in a corner. So I walk out of the garage and I come into the house to go to the bathroom, and as I'm walking in the corner of my eye, the globe starts to move. So I thought Aiden plugged it back in. You know, he was little at the time. I thought Aiden plugged it back in and clicked it because it was one of those that spins. So I figured I better go shut it off. Don't want to burn the motor out. So I walk over there and I bent down to go unplug it, and it's already unplugged. So I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So I thought maybe there's some residual power left in it. It's still kind of, spinning around a little bit because it was just kind of just slowly going like this. So I was like, all right, whatever. So I put my hand on it and I stop it and I turn around to walk away. And as I'm going back into the bathroom, now it does about a quarter turn. And I'm like, okay, what was that? And I turn around, I walk back, and now it's, as I'm walking to it, it's just going like this. So I put my hand on to stop it, and that pissed it off. And as I put my hand on it, all of a sudden now the globe is just like trying to spin all directions. I let go of it and I took off. I ran right outside the house. I just I didn't fucking hesitate. It was like 2:30 in the morning. I was like, fuck this shit. I'm out. I walked out of the room. My mom says, of course, the old Sicilians that they are, it was like my grandmother trying to tell me something, because that wall is where the globe is. It's my grandmother, my grandfather on both sides, and all these people that, have literally been gone for 50, 60, 70 years, some 100 years that are on that wall. But yeah, it was very trippy. It was a trippy thing. And it was like, it was really angry that I had put my hand on it and stopped it. It was like, I want to spin this globe. And I was just like, oh, do whatever you want. And I just took off. I mean, I went outside and I sat outside for about a half an hour before I walked back in the house. I was just like, oh, fuck this. Yeah, no. No. Because I told them, I think the guy, I've had a couple experiences, and there's like 6 or 7 of us in this family that have some stories as well of some weird stuff happening, to them. My little cousin running into his mom and dad's bedroom and sitting in between them and looking up at the ceiling and saying, okay, no, everything will be fine. I'm good. Don't worry. You can go now. And his grandfather died like a half an hour before he did that. So it was, very trippy. And my cousin is looking at his son going, who are you talking to? He goes, I'm talking to no, he's leaving. He's saying goodbye. He's leaving. And then they got the phone call like a half hour later that he had passed away. So it was just really trippy shit, and the one that to me to this day freaks me out. I was telling Tim and Deana was my buddy that, he used to work on our trucks, that worked at that shop for Penske, and our truck line was through Penske. So he would come and fix our trucks, and I'm coming back into work, and I'm about 10, 15 minutes from the shop. And I look over in the passenger seat because I kept my briefcase there and all my documents and stuff. I was just kind of grabbing to make sure I had my paperwork ready to go when I got in the office. And I turn around, he's sitting in the chair. And he's like, hey, everything's cool. Don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. And I looked over, I'm like, what the fuck? And I mean, he's like physically sitting in that chair. And I get back to the yard, and they all told me, hey, he passed away. He had an aneurysm that was hidden behind his chest plate. He had a chest plate because he caught on fire when he was a kid, and he had a plate that was keeping his rib cage together, so they never spotted the aneurysm, and he had passed away. And so that's why I get freaked out when I see this shit. I'm like, when I hear these stories, I'm just like, nope, no. But Tim don't have any. Tim, you don't have any, huh? Oh, you never sounded better, Tim. Never sounded better. You're muted, my little man.
Sorry, I try to mute myself so I don't sound around me. All right, so I'll tell the story of the one experience I had, and I've kind of maybe tricked myself into thinking that it was probably just sort of like I wasn't quite awake. I was either dreaming. I was probably dreaming. So the house that we lived in growing up as kids, my I guess my grandfather's brother had built, Frank Swift, and I think he built the house sometime in the 50s. I want to say in the 50s. My parents bought the house in 1973, and this is before there was an addition in the house, extended onto the house. It was just the original house. And my brother and I slept in the same room, which was like an upstairs bedroom. And the house was kind of stacked, and the only staircase to get up to the second floor was like right in the middle of the house. So you would, as soon as you got to the top of this stairs, that's where my brothers and my bunk beds were. My parents slept in a downstairs bedroom. Anyway, my grandmother was she liked to do quilting, so she had made some blankets for my brother and I when we were little kids, and one of them was in the shape of a football of the for the team, the Washington Redskins, and I believe it had. I think it might have had the shape of an Indian head in the middle of it, but it looked like a football. And then there was another one, and I don't remember what that one was specifically. But anyway, we never slept under the quilts. They were more decorative than anything. Not something we wanted to wreck. So my mom would drape the quilts over the banister as you came up to the top of the stairs. So it was like a 3-sided banister, right? Stairs were in the center, and then you had banister going around 3 sides of it. And so I slept on the bottom bunk, and I just remember kind of like having one of those moments, when you're a little kid and you kind of wake up, but you don't want to, you're tired, but you don't want to like fully wake up, but you kind of like mess with yourself. So like you kind of half wake up and you kind of squint your eyes, but you squint your eyes just enough that you can kind of see the room, you know what I mean, through the squint. And I was sitting there and I was looking at the banister and the quilt, and I slowly started seeing the quilt slide off the edge of the banister, like down into the stairwell. Like literally watched it kind of like almost as if somebody was down on the lower part of the stairwell, pulling it down from the inside. And I watched it completely slide off, like it disappeared down into the stairwell. And I think when I saw that, at whatever state I was in, I was like, it scared me. So I closed my eyes, and then the next thing you know, I woke up like in the morning, and then the quilt was just hanging there like it had been from the night before. So I don't know how I want to quantify that experience. Did I actually experience my I don't know what bloodline name you would call that, my grandfather's brother, I don't know how you
grandfather's brother's your uncle, your great uncle.
Great. Well, okay. So great uncle Frank or whatever, was that Frank in the house, playing around? You know how sometimes old guys like to kind of mess around with kids and stuff like that, and maybe that was him. But again, I can't sit here and tell you definitively. Yes, I know I was awake. I know I saw that really happen. It could have been just a dream. It could have been just a dream, and that's all it really was. So, I mean, to this day, I don't walk around going, "Yeah, I had this experience where I saw the quilt slide off the banister." But I mean, if you want to call that, there was that, and then there was the Ouija board thing.
Did the Washington team lose that weekend?
Dude, I was probably like fucking 7 or 8 years old. I don't even know how vested I was in football at that point.
Your uncle could have been telling you to put some money down on Redskins that night.
I don't know. I'm not much of a gambler, so if he was, I probably wouldn't have caught on. But I do have a friend who, as Derek coined it, is a sensitive. Her mother, probably a little bit more pronounced than that. I mean, my friends told me stories before about, things that her mother has had premonitions of, or been able to kind of explain away, or like things happened in their house when we were little kids. But it was one time. I was over at their house, and Doug was upstairs putting.
It's happening right now in his house.
No, it might be a dog at the back door. I heard a sound. I don't know if somebody sneezed or something.
It was your great uncle.
It could have been. I don't know. This house is only 7 years old, so I don't think it's on. I'm the
land,
original owner.
How old is the land? Don't worry about how old the house is.
Oh, I don't know. I'm probably on top of an Indian burial ground for all I know. Wait, are there any trees outside my window? I just checking. There was one night I was over at their house and Doug was upstairs putting the kids to bed because the boys wouldn't go to sleep until he came up to say goodnight. And Julia and I were sitting out on the back porch, drinking wine, just talking and shooting this shit. And she was sitting to my left, facing inside, looking from the porch inside the back windows, right? And I was kind of like aimed looking at her, and we were just talking about stuff. And then out of like nowhere, she goes, "Oh my God, did you see that?" And I was like, "What? Like, what? What are you talking about?" She goes, "Someone just walked right by the window inside the house." She goes, "I just saw someone walk right by the window inside the house. I swear to God." I looked up and she saw it. Now, I didn't see it. I was looking at her when it happened. Now, of course, I immediately turned and looked when she said that she saw this thing. But I fully believe she saw something because her reaction was just so genuine. And Doug was still upstairs. It wasn't like he came down and had passed through going into the kitchen and it was his shadow being cast by a light. I mean, he literally came down the stairs like 10 minutes later after putting the boys to sleep. And I mean, she was pretty tripped out. And I said, "Well, Julia, you may have actually seen something." And she seems to think it might have been Doug's uncle who had recently passed and was,
Yeah.
Anyway.
See, something's happening to me right now. And I'm not shitting you guys. Watch my screen. Somebody is fucking with me. My phone is just going like fucking crazy. And I'm not touching it. It just keeps wanting me to post something. I'm not kidding you right now.
Well, I don't understand. What's wrong?
It just keeps going. I opened Facebook and then shut it off on because I thought something was going on. So I completely shut it off, turned it back on again, and it keeps going to the post something screen nonstop. Like it wants me to post something.
Okay.
I can't get out of it. Look, I just took it off. I'm not touching that. It is fucking creepy, dude. And I'll shut it off again. Watch. I'm going to shut it. I'm going to physically shut Facebook off.
Okay.
There it is. I'm going to shut it off. I'm going to open it again. There's the screen.
Yeah. Well, it's not on the posting screen.
Look.
There it goes. Oh, I saw it flip out a little bit. I think I think your cache is jacked up. So
there's nothing open. That's what I'm saying, dude. There's nothing open. There is nothing open but Facebook. Look.
Okay.
Now watch. I'm going to shut it off again. I think we scared Dean off.
I'm not seeing where you're going with this.
It stopped now, but I kept reopening it and shutting it off, and it kept going back to wanting me to post something nonstop. Yeah. And every time I clicked the X to go back to the regular screen and put my phone down, it would go back to post something. I've never had that kind of a problem with Facebook. I don't know. I'm just maybe it's just this goddamn show right now.
This show's a portal. So, Mike, I have a question for Derek. For Derek because his information is very valuable.
Maybe.
All right. So, since you started getting into doing paranormal investigations and kind of building your team, have you seen a drastic or sharp spike in the number of groups that want to start doing this, or a rise in the number of people that get into this field, meaning where you once might be able to get into a location relatively easily? I'm sure it's probably discretionary based on the owners. They probably, it might be their house and they don't want people traipsing through their house the entire time. But have you found it become more competitive where it becomes harder and harder for you to book time in these places?
I think a lot of the places, as far as like legit locations that, offer tours and stuff like that, I think it is getting a little bit more harder to book. I know like the Hinsdale House, Wildwood Sanitarium, some of the more well-known locations in New York, there's no more weekends available for the rest of the year. Like the Conjuring House, when they were booking investigations, they were booked 2 years out solid every single night. And then other locations, as far as like abandoned locations, I think with the popularity of like Urbex Exploring and YouTubers going to these places, they're a lot more patrolled now, a lot more harder to access than they were, say, 5-10 years ago. So definitely, I think the not only TV has increased people's popularity, but now they see, hey, I can get a camera myself or even record on my cell phone and post it to YouTube. It's a lot more accessible to post what you find there. So I think, to your question, yes, it is saturating the field a little bit more. But as far as like, if you do it the correct way and do it through booking locations instead of just trying to break in, there's still people that try to break into the Conjuring house, and they've posted clearly, you will be arrested for trespassing. There's a way to go about it, but people are still dumb and they still try to trespass. It's just, it's kind of crazy knowing that they still do that. I think that's part of the reason why the owners that just recently bought it 2-3 years ago sold, because Corey, he has PTSD from the war, because he's a military vet, and he's spoken openly about it. He's like, one of these days I'm going to hurt somebody because they're going to break into my house in the middle of the night, and I'm not going to be able to restrain myself. So that they talked about that openly on one of their it wasn't a podcast, but it was like a Facebook Live where they talked about why they were selling the house and stuff like that. And one of those reasons was that they legit, it was like 24/7. It was nonstop people trying to get access to the location. And it was a lot bigger than what they could not only, I mean, they handled it very well for what they did, but they thought someone else would be able to handle it more to the ability that it needed to be, dealt with.
Right. Yeah, I always wondered about it, because it seems like, once something starts to kind of take hold from a television perspective or an exposure perspective, it tends to ramp up the number of people who want to start doing that. And I can only imagine, say 20 years ago, people that were doing this, and nowadays where you have all these social media channels, where people are trying to monetize themselves and make a living. I'm like, people don't want to work anymore. I think everybody's just turning into a YouTuber or TikTok star anymore, because everybody trying to get their angle. Yeah,
and that's one thing I try to describe to people, the differentiation between paranormal investigators that post to YouTube and YouTubers who try to do paranormal investigations. I think there's a big difference, where if you're a YouTuber that just in it for views, monetization, stuff like that, you're going to go into these locations and you're going to do whatever it takes to get views. So you're going to fake content. You're going to pretend like you're possessed. You're going to pretend like stuff was thrown at you. Whereas, so if you watch one of those videos versus if you watch one of our videos, you're going to be like, wow, that's kind of boring. This guy wasn't possessed, or this guy didn't get pushed by a demon,
Yeah.
So that's where I try to tell people, if you want real content, then check out our channel. If you want to be entertained, there's plenty of YouTubers out there that fake it.
Right.
We've come across owners of these locations. For instance, the school that we just did, they actually took legal action against a YouTuber for claiming that there was a demonic presence in the school, because you sign waivers saying you won't use their content for monetization or for financial gain. And that's how they got them to take down the video.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because a lot of these, I mean, that's the big thing on TikTok and YouTube. And I mean, the difference between the actual people that are doing the investigation to learn about what's going on, and then those that are doing it for clicks and to go viral. I mean, that who the difference are. And then you kind of laugh at those videos because you're just like,
There's actually there's a YouTuber called The Shape. And do you remember that show on Fox, The Masked Magician, the guy who wore a mask that exposed all the magician secrets?
Yeah.
Well, this guy is kind of like the masked magician for paranormal investigators. He wears a Jason mask, but he takes all these YouTubers that fake videos and he breaks down their videos frame by frame and audio clips, and he exposes all the ones that are faking videos. It's actually pretty entertaining to watch, because I watch it as someone who actually cares about paranormal investigating. But at the same time, I don't want to throw shade on anyone's channel, because I just feel like if I just stay in my own lane, that's going to be more beneficial to my channel. But this guy doesn't care. He'll just go out and start like calling everybody out that's faking stuff. And it's actually really entertaining to watch, because as an investigator, like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, I appreciate you actually legitimizing the videos and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
Yeah, because it's kind of taken off worldwide. It's insane how many videos I see from the Iraq area or Iran area. I mean, there's like a new video every day coming from that region, and it's always jinns, jinn.
Yeah.
I guess that's a jinn is a demon to us. We call them demons, they call them jinn. But there are so many jinn videos from that area, and some of the locations that they're going into. I mean, these are dangerous places. I mean, these are half-blown buildings that are, completely, non-safe for anyone to be in there, let alone, a bunch of kids walking around trying to get a picture. But then, it's obvious they don't have very good editing people. You can see the door slamming. You can see physical people standing there slamming the doors. And I'm just like, yeah, good try, buddy. I can see your friend on the other side of the door. So,
Well, I mean, of course, there's always. I mean, I would want genuine viewing. It doesn't have to be dramatic for me to buy into it. I think I'd be a little bit more inclined to be skeptical of that kind of stuff where it seems highly sensationalized. Another question for Derek. So you've obviously gone into multiple types of locations, houses, psych wards, things. Is there one place that you haven't been yet that you're dying to try? Like you're like this is one type of place I'd love to investigate and just have not gotten the opportunity due to bookings or money or whatever.
We've done quite a bit. The one that comes to the top of my head is like a battleship.
I was thinking the same thing.
There's a USS, I think it's called USS Salem. I think it's in Massachusetts, and it's a docked World War II battleship that is reported paranormal activity. I mean, because we've done hospitals, we've done prison.
I've been in that. I've been in that.
Have you?
Yeah. My son we got a special tour.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's supposed to be haunted.
Yeah. No, I didn't see it.
But yeah, I think that's one that would be kind of pretty unique. I mean, when we just recently done the school, that was the first time we did a haunted school, so that was cool.
Right.
We've done forts, we've done tuberculosis hospitals, poorhouses. Yeah, well, I think a battleship would just be sanatoriums. Yeah.
What about crematoriums?
No, I haven't really. I mean, we've been to a place where I think they had like a small crematorium, but nothing huge like that.
What about a coroner?
Damn,
coroner's office.
Yeah, when we went to Rolling Hills Asylum, they had like a coroner's like morgue area that had like the body table, and you could see like the grates in the floor where the blood would spill into, and then they had the freezer rooms where they would store the bodies and stuff like that.
Yeah, that would I think that one would kind of trip me out. Like I remember seeing one show where I probably was the Ghost Adventures where they got one of them closed themselves in one of those things and lay down in the tray, for like, and they shut the door behind him, and then they all left the room, and so he's like by himself in one of those freezer container things. I don't know, because when you went down, I thought Battleship at first. I was going to ask if you had done one of those yet. Obviously, the World War II ones, come to mind. Well, what about like, have you ever seen any opportunities for old restored galleon or tall ships, stuff like that? Like, stuff from, I don't even know what period you would call that. I'm thinking of like Captain, My Captain, where they were like on the old kind of, schooner kind of. But my dad is fascinated by tall ships. He builds models of them, like intricate models of them. I'm not talking like the plastic Revell thing that you can get at Michael's or whatever. But have you ever seen any of those opportunities or anybody take those?
I haven't seen anything as far as like in my like trying to book locations and finding locations like that. I mean, it could be possible, but I think sometimes maybe just like the insurance purposes and like the policy that they have to take out to host these investigations. I don't know if it would be different for a location like that. It might be depending on who owns it, but no, I haven't come across anything like that yet.
Well, I would also imagine too, in that particular case, a lot of the things of that nature might be considered historical sites. So
Right.
you
Yeah.
probably got a lot more at stake because some of them kind of
Yeah.
transfer to being almost like a living museum. You know what I
Right.
mean? That because
Well, we had 30 minutes to get in and out of the sub when we got to our tour of that. And the same thing was with the tour of submarines that we got to do in Connecticut, because we got to go through some old subs there too where he was stationed. So we got like the son and family tour of some of the subs, and you had 30 minutes to kind of go through the not touch nothing.
Yeah, well, I went on the Spirit of the U.S. or something like that in San Diego. I think that's the name of the tall ship that is docked down there in San Diego. And I don't I mean, obviously that was more. I think the Spirit of the U.S. though actually still sails from time to time. They do get crews together and they go out and they take it out for like the afternoon or something like that, and then they bring it back in. So it's still an operating boat. But what about
San Francisco, Tim? They brought that to San Francisco.
Yeah, did they sail it from San Diego up to San Francisco?
And docked it and had like it was there for like a couple of weeks, and you got I think it was like $30-$35 to
Have you ever considered looking into places like Colonial Williamsburg or Colonial Jamestown, you know, like areas, the first settlers and, you know, that kind of stuff?
That's something that I would love to do. Again, like what you touched on before, like just the historical significance of those buildings. I don't know how accessible they are. I emailed a couple people in Massachusetts about going to some places in Salem, like the House of Seven Gables. And then there's another house where like the judge presided over the witch trials. So I emailed a couple of those historical societies, and a lot of them have boards. So a lot of them, they have to take a vote or they have to present it in front of the board to see if they'll allow people to do that. So that's something that we're trying to get into. A lot of the TV shows that go there, they have a lot more pull because they have a lot more they can offer. Maybe they can make a bigger donation to these locations or something like that. But we've been trying to, I emailed some places in like Colonial Salem and like some of those colonial type houses, but we haven't heard. But this was right before the start of the pandemic as well. So I think a lot of that probably got mothballed. So
there's probably a lot of weird shit that happened in the South during that time that I probably wouldn't want to be involved in any of those homes. That's all I'd say. First, two questions. Number one, is there a national organization that you guys register with? Is there something like that for these types of, like the National Paranormal Investigation, whatever, is there something like that?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I've come across them on the internet, like there's different databases where you can pull up paranormal investigators per state. I think we're listed on one. I'm just not sure which one it is. I don't know if there's like one centralized one, but there's other like nonprofit sites that kind of collect it.
Yeah. I would probably help you guys get into those places that you're talking about if you had some sort of organization where they're going to, they're going to vouch for this group because they're part of our organization. Number two, this one has always bothered me, and I wanted to talk about this before the show ends, but photos. And then that's starting to be a big thing where you're starting to see a lot of these older photos where there's people there that are not supposed to be there, or completely different clothing, and, centuries old photo with some, with the guy that, everyone's wearing what they wore in the 80s, but this guy's in, Civil War uniform, How legit do you think those photos are? Because it's hard now. I mean, I'm a photographer. I know what you can do. So
it's very hard with photos. Just between the matrixing of the photos, between pareidolia, where your face automatically sees human faces in some of the paranormal photos, and then just with the ability of Photoshop these days, it's very hard to authenticate like a photo. I mean, that's why I personally don't focus on taking too many pictures, just because it's hit or miss in the paranormal field. Some investigators don't take any stock in photos whatsoever. They'll dismiss it completely. They won't even look at it. Then others, they'll take a photo and they'll circle it and they're like, "Oh, do you see what I see?" And there's absolutely nothing there. So like, I personally don't take any stock in them. I think there are some legit photos. When we went to Fort William Henry, there was some photos and it looked legit like a colonial soldier from that time period standing right where he shouldn't be standing.
Crazy.
John, I'll actually message you those photos and have you take a look. So
yeah, I would love to see those.
Yeah, there's some that I definitely think could be authentic, but like you said, even with videos these days, like with the way that you can like do deep fakes, it's crazy how you can manipulate anything. So it's a matter of, I think that's where your credibility in the field really takes precedent. Where are you known as a team that stretches truth? Are you known as a team that will fake stuff? Or, I think that goes a long way in authenticating whatever evidence you do collect, because they know what type of integrity you as a group have.
Yeah. Do you feel that with each year, technology getting where it's at and being able to manipulate all this, whether it's video or photos, do you think it's going to get even harder now to justify a ghost? Because you're going to get a lot of doubters, because everyone's going to be, well, that, I could do that on Photoshop, or I can do that with First Cut. I can do that with, Photoshop, So do you feel like eventually, within, next 10 years, you're going to have to capture a goddamn ghost and actually have them in a jar to prove to somebody you have one?
Yeah. And I think that's where you either believe or you don't believe. I mean, at that point, because you're either going to accept it or you're going to deny it. So that's where like when we post our videos to YouTube or we post it to groups or whatever, that's where you just got to block out everybody that says something negative. Because like you said, let alone capturing ghosts in a bottle, they're not going to believe it no matter what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally have every single investigation we've been to, I have every single file, audio file, video file saved on the hard drive. And I actually have a binder right here. This binder right here is every single note from every single location we've been to. So if I tell you we've captured an EVP, I can pull up exactly where on that file that spirit voice is captured. Because even with the audio file, I mean, I use a simple program, a free OpenShot video editor, and it'll be so easy to overlay a spooky
right on top of it.
On top of an audio file. So that's where I can actually pull up the audio file and show you the wavelengths and show you that file isn't spliced in. So I think that's just where documentation, if you're a true paranormal investigator, you can document your findings.
Yeah.
Where 9 out of 10 YouTubers, you say, hey, let me see the raw clip of that spirit voice, and they won't be able to provide it.
Right.
And that's another thing what that YouTuber does. He Googled he Googled like ghost sounds, or he Googled whatever audio file that he heard in the YouTube video, and he matched it up 100%.
That's what I saw. I saw that, and that blew me fucking away. That when they were pulling that, where they had that guy sitting down, they would send him this file, their video with audio and everything in it, and he just tore that video apart to the point where he actually pulled that audio clip right out of that video and compared it to a clip from 3 years ago. That it was perfect. It was exactly the same audio, same level, same signature, everything. And it's like, they just dubbed it right in there, into the video. But that's what I like about you guys, because you guys do that in your videos. You break it down. You show them, hey, this happened for real, and we're going to try to debunk it. And you guys always do that. I like that. Instead of just going to the next clip like you see on TV. It's like, okay, this happened. Oh my God. And then what's his name? We'll talk about it for 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Never try to debunk it. They just move on. They move on.
Yeah, that's where like that's the sleight of hand. It's like, let's just amp up what we just saw without trying to debunk it. It's just
And with the picture thing, you're right, because there are times, like even when I'll take a picture, and like a lot of times it happens to me when I use brush in the background of my photos, because I do a lot of hiking, and I'll take a photo of someone in the woods, and we're hiking, and we're just an action shot, and then I'll see things in these photos. I'll be like, hey, I see that, and everyone is like, dude, that's a fucking branch, tree, and blah blah blah. But you see, your mind will automatic. Once you've seen it, you've seen it. You know what I mean? It's in your head. And I can never look at certain photos and not think there's somebody's in that photo. So it's trippy. Go ahead, Tim. Voice mute, unmute yourself, my brother. Swift.
There you go. All right. So obviously, one of the more common anomalies in a said paranormal investigation, so I'll back it up a bit and provide some context. So, uh, 3 years ago, we decided to do a Lawrenceville ghost tour thing. Right, we were looking around for something to do. We like to go in the big groups and stuff. And the one we did was put on by the Lawrenceville. Um, they're like the talent people. They like the people that are in musicals and plays and stuff. It was done by the Lawrenceville Theater, and so basically they assign this guy to us, and he comes out, and he's obviously an actor, and he's in character and stuff like this old minstrel, from like from like Victorian times or whatever, and so he has this little mandolin or whatever, and he walks us down to this graveyard in Lawrenceville, and then he obviously told many of the stories of the graveyard or the people who had passed and were buried there, and then we got some time to kind of go off on our own. So and while we were there, obviously everybody had their cell phones out and were videotaping while we were looking at certain things, and we had flashlights and whatnot. Anyway, we came back later the next day, and we were like, everybody was kind of like watching back all their stuff, and so one of the more common anomalies that seems to present itself in almost every paranormal investigation are orbs. What are your take on orbs and their legitimacy as actual spirits?
So for orbs, I'm very skeptical with orbs because there's so many like rational explanations for orbs. I think a lot of them are like either lens flares or sun flare or just reflections, because what a lot of people don't realize is that how much light can scatter and how much light can affect photos. I mean, John, you probably know as a photographer.
Big time. A lot of it's just lens quality.
Yeah.
Lens quality is just a huge factor.
And that's the thing too, is like, and whenever someone posts a video in a paranormal group of like, oh, I think this is an orb, and it's a little green dot, and it's just a lens or a sun flare from the sun from the pictures. So I mean, and you're not going to convince those people, because a lot of people that want to see orbs, they want to see their loved one that was just deceased, they want to see it as a sign of them coming back. So I just kind of let people believe what they want to believe. But I personally, I think I've seen a couple pictures of orbs that I can't explain and I can't debunk. I think maybe those account for less than 5 to 10% of all the quote unquote orbs out there. So
the ones that I have a hard time with, just knowing my lenses, is the quick movement. That's hard to fake. I mean, you're not going to get that movement that you see with a light in your lens. A lot of times that's going to be a fixed light or flare in your lens that you're going to see in a location. But when I see one that's scattered around or spinning, I don't know if they're computer animated or whatnot, or CGI or whatever you want to call them. But the ones that I see that are quickly moving left and right, up and down, those I kind of like, okay, that's not due to a lens.
Yeah, we actually included a couple of those in one of our videos. And like I said, I'm not big on including orbs. And one of our, which one was it? It was the one where we did the jail. It was an old jailhouse. And it was a sheriff's house, but they actually had jail cells in the house. And there's two like light anomalies, I guess is the best way you can call it, but they're like spinning and they change directions, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Yeah, you're not going to get that. Yeah, especially in a dark room. Like I'm sure that was in a dark room.
Yeah, it was in a dark room when we were shooting in night vision. Yeah. So. But another thing that a lot of people will post is they'll post a picture of their child. They're like, oh, I think there's a spirit attached to them, but the child is clearly moving. So it's like just motion blur from the camera. So that's another thing that a lot of people claim to be paranormal, which I think is easily debunked.
I want to get into, you said the magic word again, child. And I want to talk about this before we end the show, because I'm starting to see a lot of videos where parents are like, who are you talking to? And kids are pointing to things, in ceilings, on walls, in rooms. I'm saying goodnight, and all this stuff. I mean, it's hard. It's hard. I'm getting chills because that's the thing. I'm telling you, kids with me freak me out when you start talking about the paranormal. But when you see some of these videos, And you can legitimately see that this kid's not acting. He's too young to be. He's 4 or 5 years old. He's pointing to a certain area in the house, or he's pointing up on the ceiling or somewhere, and he's saying, "I'm saying goodnight. I'm saying goodnight." Or that shit freaks me out.
So there's a belief that animals and children can see spirits more than adults, and there is some. I don't want to say it's scientific evidence, because a lot of it is what people call pseudoscience, or it's like metaphysical science, where there's a belief that like your pineal gland, like your skull, your cranium it hardens up until the age of 8. So your skull is still forming. So they believe that the pineal gland has more of a receptive power and more of a ability to experience stuff that we can't experience when we get older. And they think that's why children are able to have a more connection with the spirit world, kind of. Mainly Pete Hall is a big like spiritualist, and he talks about it. And actually a book called like Eye of God, or I believe it's called, or something like that.
So it has nothing to do with innocence. Because
I mean, it could very well too, where as a child you're using your imagination a lot more, you're open a lot more, where as you get older and older, you get conditioned to believe, oh, ghosts aren't real, this isn't real, so you're turning off your mind to that. Like, so if we do have that psychic ability, or we have that what they call ESP or whatever, children haven't turned it off yet, where the older we get and the more we get out of playing, or we get out of imagination, or we get out of like make believe and stuff like that, we get more rigid in our beliefs, because you start thinking along the lines of, oh, I gotta go to work, I gotta pay the bills, I gotta do the mortgage, I gotta feed my kids, you know. So I really think there is some basis to that, where kids are more open to the spirit world, and spirits will communicate with kids more, because the kids actually are like, oh, hey, what's up, like you're actually there. Where if adults actually start to experience paranormal, a lot of them shut it down immediately, where they're like, oh, I didn't really hear that, or, you know, oh, I heard a voice, but I'm just going to ignore it because ghosts aren't real. So
I'm trying to find that video of that kid, and it's very strange. And you can see the kid he sees something there.
Yeah,
and he's sitting.
Was he like talking into like a bathroom or something?
Right, into the bathroom. That video, and he said he's been doing it for quite some time.
I saw that video, and I agree with you. If that kid's acting, he deserves an Oscar.
Like, yeah. I mean, and then he you can see how upset he is that she's trying to tell him there's nobody there, and he just kind of turns around, gives her a look, and just kind of walks away. But you can see in his eyes that he's like, it's there, something's there. And as a parent, I don't know how I would react to that situation.
My dog do that. Like, I have 4 dogs, and one of them will just look into a corner and start growling. I'm like, what the hell are you growling?
Yeah. I was going to say, have you ever taken any of the animals on an investigation?
Yeah.
No, but I want to. Like, I think that would be a pretty cool, almost like Scooby-Doo type kick, take one of our dogs.
It might be a good litmus. I mean, especially, especially if because like we just brought it up, where they say animals are sensitive to that stuff. You see videos all the time where the dog's like standing on the bed, just like looking at the wall, just like growling, and there's like no cars driving by. There's no people outside, screaming and yelling. I mean, the dog is legit looking like he sees something or senses something that's not right.
I watched a Ghost Adventures episode where the founder, he brought his dog, and the dog was like very hesitant to go over the threshold of a certain place. So it has been done.
Well, I mean, they they're saying, I mean, they use dogs for people that have seizures, and they give them fair warning that they're just about, sometimes up to like 30-40 seconds before they're actually going to have a seizure. It's amazing.
There's a change there's a smell, there's like a chemical change in the body that they can sense.
You want to see that one, Lee? I'll send it to you. I'll find it and send it to you. It's very creepy. You can see the kid is legitimately upset that his mother's saying there's no one there, and he's just pointing up there, and you can see it in his face. He's not scared. He's not frightened at all. He's just, he's like, hey, I'm saying goodnight. I'm saying goodnight. And he's pointing towards the vent. as a parent, I would have said, all right, let's tear that fucking vent open. I mean, that's the first thing I'm doing, because we've seen those stories where that one video where the guy knows someone's stealing food out of his house. You ever seen that video? That is the creepiest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. But he knows food is missing in his house. And he's like, something is fucking going on in his house. And because every time he leaves, he comes back, there's food missing. So he sets up cameras. Yeah. This person was living in his vent. Jesus. And when he would leave for work, and he was homeless, but every time he would leave for work, you know, you can see in the video, the guy pushes the vent. It's one of those big air. It's the one that sucks in air for your air conditioning. The fucker was living in there. And he would pull that vent open and he would crawl out when he would go to work. And sometimes at night when he was sleeping, he would open that in the middle of the night, crawl down from this vent thing, go into it's just walking around his house, eating food, watching TV while he's sleeping. And I'm like, to me, I'm like, if my kid is pointing towards a vent and saying, you know, it's legitimately one of those small vents. It's not like something could be in there, but I'm still opening that vent. I'm going to look in there with my flashlight, make sure there's nothing's in there. But yeah, you can see it, Lisa. I mean, the kid is serious he's seeing something, and, you know, and the mom's like, he's been doing this for weeks. But then again, it's TikTok, so you have to question it's legitimacy. I can't say it.
Legitimacy.
Thank you, Tim. That's my guy. That's my number one. Yeah, it is very strange, and you can just see how frustrated he is when he walks away from the video, because he's mad that his mom doesn't believe him. It's pretty creepy. We never got to UFOs because we were just talking about this stuff. We'll have to come back and do a UFO show. I really want to dig. I actually did a lot of research on that because I find that kind of amazing that it's all now become common thing. So, and you know, once you're, you know, the Congress starts to jump in and is actually saying that they got stuff that's out there, and to me, the first thing I said when that happened is like, okay, it's just their way to get us to stop talking about COVID and move on, because it's that time period that all came out. It was like when COVID was its hiatus and everybody was just like weaking out. Well, let's just throw aliens out there and fuck with everybody now.
We hadn't even gotten over the killer wasps yet.
Yeah. We got the killer wasp. Let's throw in aliens. Aliens they exist. They've been here for years. So, hey, Derek, I want to thank you for coming on. It was fun doing this. I love doing this talk. It's always fun. Deana got freaked out and had to go.
I guess so.
Dude, I'm not telling you, my phone just stopped doing that. I don't know what was going on, but it would not let me open Facebook without going in there. And then it kept screenshotting. So I don't know if someone's fucking with me, but again, thank you, Tim, for jumping in and helping me out tonight. And Derek, always a pleasure having you. And we'll have you guys back on at another time. That has been the scariest BS show we've had in a long time. Derek got me to have goosebumps on my body like 6 fucking times this time. I tell you, kids, it scares me. Kids scare me. So when I see that stuff with kids, it freaks me out. We will see everybody next Friday. Again, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Derek. And we are out of here. Hold on. Let me hit this. Does your mom